All of us know we need a friend in Jesus. And then that next part was, here's the way you show it. You lay your life down for your friend.
There's this essential quality of relationship that Jesus is offering to us, and it's friendships.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of First Person, a conversational program introducing you to guests who always share an interesting perspective. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and this week 2 men join me to tell their story of friendship. We'll talk with Michael Card and Scott Roley. Before I introduce Mike and Scott to you today, I want to tell you about our website, firstpersoninterview.com, which archives all of these first-person interviews for you to listen to anytime. There's also a calendar of upcoming guests and topics, and, of course, more detail about today's guests. firstpersoninterview.com. We're also found online at facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Well, as I said, both Michael Card and Scott Roley are with us today. Mike is a longtime friend who's been with us previously on First Person. He's a well-known songwriter, singer, author, and teacher, and we've had many conversations on and off the radio for many years. Scott Roley is also a musician. He's a former pastor and a writer who has a big heart for the poor and oppressed. Mike and Scott have been best friends for many years, so we wanted to sit down together in Mike's Mole End studio and talk about what the two of them are learning about the value of friendship. We did that very recently, and Mike started the conversation.
Well, Scott is my best friend. And he's been my best friend for 30 years. The day we met, we became best friends, and we've been best friends ever since.
Scott, you met in a studio?
We did. We were both trying to supplement our songwriting careers by singing background vocals for local commercials.
You got to put bread on the table, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that Michael Card was singing commercials.
Williamson County Bank.
That's right. So we were.
I'm tempted to ask you how it went. But.
Well, I wish we had a copy of it. I would love to hear what we did.
It really would be fun.
Yeah.
We were crammed into a small booth, so right off we felt uncomfortable. But I had known who Mike Card was. I had been 10 years kind of prior to that working. Mike was a real paradigm for me, a guy that was doing what I'd always wanted to do. Singing songs for Jesus. So here we are singing about bank accounts and safety deposit boxes and stuff like that.
And from that small booth, then you graduated to a bus, right?
Well, there you go. It took a while to get there, but I remember coming out when he was loading out his cabin. He was building a cabin on this property. Just profound stuff that he was doing that I got to get into and get to know him through. And from there, as he said, an immediate friendship was formed.
The bus was the touring bus. You guys traveled the country singing together at times.
Well, we started in a van, though, and that was one of the ways our friendships really
survived.
Our friendship really developed is in the old days. I mean, we're in the van and we drive all night to wherever the next place is. And Scott was the only person who's driving I trusted, and I was the only person who's driving he trusted. We are both excellent drivers, I must say. But
and then when we had we graduated to an equipment truck, I was able to drive that, or we'd be able to share the driving.
But the point is, we'd stay up all night and we talk all night, and we're constantly everywhere we get. We're so hoarse from talking all night long that it's hard to sing. So we're hoarse all the time. Right. And we just did a thing together in Chicago, and we drove all night long to get to Chicago.
I bid
and we
you
were
guys
so hoarse.
fond farewell as you were heading off into the night.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. You were there.
Right.
So how long did that go on? I mean,
years.
Yeah. We what's funny is we had a mutual booking agent. He was actually Mike's agent, Wes Yoder, who I would then pick the scraps off whenever Mike wasn't doing something. Wes would send me over. And I liked that, actually, because they loved Mike, all these promoters. So anyway, one day he called and said, hey, listen, the guy, Don Potter, was your guitar player.
Yeah, that was a long time
ago. That was
ago.
a long time ago. Anyway, so he called me and said, hey, we've got these 12 dates. Would you fly out and meet Mike in Washington, D.C., and just stay with him through these 12 dates? And, of course, I was like, yes, I'd love to do that. And those 12 dates turned into about 6 years. And it really was an amazing opportunity for us.
And those 6 years have turned into
30 years.
30, yeah.
30 years.
Plus, yeah. So
let's talk about friendship.
Well, it's what we're learning, because we're kind of exploring this idea together right now, the idea of spiritual friendship. I think ground zero is it's a gift. It's grace. It's it's a gracious gift of God
Yeah. We talk about it in light of the opportunity that you have with somebody that you're close with to be self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
That you find this great gift, and the great blessing of it is I'm able to give myself up, that I would actually die to myself. That's what we're seeing is true friendship. But biblically, Michael, and as he's been exploring it scripturally, and me as well, we're finding lots of evidence in the Bible about friendship.
Yeah, especially Jesus' approach, his offering of himself.
Okay, I want to talk about that, but there must have been some bumps along the way.
Oh,
that you grew through.
Our bumps
between
in our
the two of
relationship.
you. Yeah.
Well, Mike is a great practical joker, and he pulls off great practical jokes, like drenching me with water, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that was funny.
I mean, those are adolescent.
So that
things.
didn't go over very well?
No, I've resented him for it ever since.
That was really funny. It was really funny. That
we
was
had one great
San Antonio,
moment.
Texas.
Yeah, one great moment in San Antonio where we were picked up. Now this is an unusual thing that we were actually in a limousine. Okay, you have to understand we never were in
we don't
limousines.
do limos. Yeah,
No.
Michael Card is a driver. He doesn't get driven. Okay,
Yes.
so and here's how classy it was. He said, "Do you mind if I stop by a car wash on the way?" So we thought this is
Why not?
suitable for us.
Yeah.
Perfect. So he stops. Make a long story short, while the robo wash is going around,
And Scott, I'm in the front seat, and Scott's in the back
and
seat.
I'm in the back, tack, 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 like I am now, real obnoxious. So all of a sudden, as the robo wash comes around to my window goes down. I go, brother.
I reached over and rolled his window down just as the sprayer came by.
Yeah, it was
I wish I
beautiful.
could have seen that.
I do think we've had. I don't think we've ever fundamentally disagreed about anything. I don't think we've actually. I don't think we've ever had a fight. That's kind of maybe a little in self-denial, but
Well, we had a split. We did
that's
have
true.
one split for
Right.
about 6 months.
Yeah.
Over a church issue.
yeah. And I legitimately felt a certain way. He legitimately felt a
Yep.
certain way. It just was a presence
Yep.
that we were trying to discern.
Yep.
Let me say this: he was right,
Mike, your turn.
which makes him feel good.
But what happens? I mean, I go to your office, right, and we just start crying.
Yeah.
I mean, we just held each other, and you know how you you can't talk when you're. I mean, I'm crying that hard, and the thing I kept saying was, and it makes me cry to think about it now. I told him I felt so alone. I mean, for 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, I felt so alone because, this person who's so fundamental to my walk with Christ, wasn't there.
Do you think what you guys had and have is rare among men?
Well, I don't think it has to be. I think it is.
Yeah, it's a good
but I
answer.
think it's more the culture that teaches men not to pursue this.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about the models of friendship, the Facebook, I like you, I unlike you, that sort of thing.
Pretty superficial.
But I think Scott's right. Even more than that, what you see on TV, you don't see, real true friendships, not self-sacrificing friendships. Friendships tend to be based on what can you do for me.
Yeah, and as the culture grows less and less committed, friendship does demonstrate something that's more eternal and right.
Yeah, the kind of friendship we're talking about.
So have you tried to define the kind of friendship you're talking about?
We're in the process of doing that.
It's hard.
Yeah, we're calling it spiritual friendship. And Christ is our our paradigm, our exemplar, and I think right now the most we can say is it is fundamentally based on grace. It's a gift, and the fabric of it has to do with being a servant. The paradigm moment is Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. That's what we do. That's what that's sort of the paradigm of friendship.
A lot of people would put this in the context of the family. And of course, you each have families and you love your families very deeply, but this is different.
Yeah, I think it is different. I think you can, in another slightly different sense, you can obviously be friends with your sons and daughters and your wives. We have caught a degree of flack for this, but I think very qualified. We're very careful to say this. Okay, so proviso.
We're listening carefully.
Okay. But I think Scott and I have come to believe that your wife, in many cases, not in every case, but your wife is perhaps not supposed to be your best friend. That
trivializes marriage.
I think it does. And it puts a burden on marriage that I don't think was originally meant to be there. I think there's a closeness, confessionally that we have as brothers that is good for both of our marriages. We are not hiding things from our wives. It's not that sort of thing, and that's what we've been accused of. But I suggest to you that maybe a good marriage needs the wife needs a good lady friend, and the husband needs a good man friend,
a confidant.
Yeah.
And truly, you are friends with your spouse. I mean,
Sure.
there's the truth. From there, what does it mean to confess your sins one to another? And we all know, and certainly as a counselor, I know that some of the most brutal things have been said in the name of honesty, which is maybe not trivializing, but overemphasizing certain aspects of the relationships between a husband and wife. And I think there's a spiritual discernment that goes in that. So what we're exploring is how do you challenge, and again, we're men, so we're challenging men, but this is going to involve women as well. There's a huge part of this that is engaged with how are women friends, and how are we friends with women. Yeah.
And that's kind of the territory we're moving into along with Lynn Cohick, who is your friend from Wheaton, who is a wonderful friend and a Bible scholar. We're exploring, the dimensions of Jesus, the friendships that Jesus had with women, which he clearly did have, and which were very countercultural in his time. Men weren't friends with women. Men weren't friends with their own wives. They didn't speak to their wives in public, that sort of thing. And yet, as we are exploring this together, and again, we're still in process, we see Jesus in partnership and ministry with women.
So this is very much a work in progress for the two of you. We're catching you right on the cusp of this, right?
Right. And I think
your friendship has been a long-lasting friendship.
Right.
But coming to grips with this biblically is what you're doing right now.
Now, I think right now, I've come through my friendship crisis Mike met me in. I needed a friend, and he was there, as he always is. So, this is a salient moment for us. Well, that's where it popped out. It popped out, and hey, we've got something special here. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And we will continue to talk about it with both Scott Roley and Michael Card coming up today on First Person. Next time, you've probably heard Charles Morris on the Haven broadcast, but do you know his story of transformation?
If we just can have the gumption to just make our way to the foot of the cross, and for the rest of our lives, hang on to the cross, that's the freedom. And it's only in Christ.
A very personal and revealing conversation with a father and a follower of Christ. Charles Morris joins us next time on First Person. Talking with Scott Roley and Mike Card at the Mole Inn Studio. Mike, you and I, for many years did many radio
yes,
programs
sir.
here.
We had a lot of good times in this room.
A lot of memories in this room right here. Scott Roley often joined us on that program and joins us here today. So talking about friendship with the two of you, I know both of you, and I know what guides your life is the Word of God. You dig when you come up with an issue like this issue of friendship. What does the Bible say about this?
Right.
So talk to me. What is the Bible teaching you about friendship?
Well, that's very well put. One of my reasons why Mike consistently is my friend is because of his desire to know biblically each topic we talk about, anything we go into. So Mike began to explain things to me biblically, which got me fired up. And one of the first things that I've recognized was that as a sinner, a big sinner, chief of sinners, Jesus wants me. Jesus wants to be my friend. Jesus wants me
because
he's
the friend of
he's
sinners.
the friend of sinners.
There
And that was a huge part of the initial kick for me, which was he's seen as someone who spends time with the ungodly, the people who were against the Pharisees, the person who was living as a prostitute, a drunkard, a glutton. And there's Jesus right in the middle of that culture, loving those people, loving sinners like me. And I think that's where the idea of friendship started for me. Yeah. All of us know we need a friend in Jesus. And then that next part was, here's the way you show it. You lay your life down for your friend. And that was the other scripture that as Mike began to mine that out, man, that just knocked me out. He demonstrates his love by dying for us.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time looking at Jesus and Peter. I think that's the principal friendship that you have portrayed in the Gospels. And what we're doing together now is we're looking through the Gospels together and sort of deducing, and that's, you got to confess, the Gospels aren't a book about Jesus' friendships, right? They're a testimony about who Jesus is so we can believe in him. But having said that, Jesus used the words friends. And for us, that at least for me, that most significant moment when it's the longest discourse we have of Jesus and John, when he's walking them to the Garden of Gethsemane right before he's arrested, that discourse is on friendship. And he uses the word, philoi, friend. There was part of me that initially was, it's like, Scott, I don't want to twist things. I don't want to, try to make the Bible say something it doesn't. But the more we look at it, the more we find that there's this essential quality of relationship that Jesus is offering to us, and it's friendships.
One of the friends that we had, Denny Denson, who was in many of the conversations that you men had here at Mole End, he used to kind of start a conversation by saying, "I thought you were my friend," which was his way of saying, "You didn't call me. I haven't talked to you in 24 hours. How are you?" But he used that because he wanted us to know that we were friends.
Yeah.
I think we miss him. And I think part of what's driven us to this...
I know you miss it.
Yeah, and I think what's
processing
driven us,
that too.
Yeah, driven us into this is because we both have a mutual friend who's not here, let alone Dr. Lane or others, but especially Denny.
And 'cause I think Scott was right. Denny was very intentional about reminding us about friendship. I can remember, a week before he died, I was stuck someplace. My car broke down. And this is, literally, he's gray. He's days, maybe 2 weeks away from death. But I just automatically called him because he was the guy you'd call. And he was so tired and so sick. And he answered the phone before I realized, oh my goodness, what am I doing? He gets in the car. He comes and gets me.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, barely able to drive, and takes me. I guess wherever I needed. I forgot where it was I needed to go, and he's very intentionally saying, "This is what friends do." It's like, okay, Mike, I'm teaching you something. This is what friends do.
Earlier, you talked about a bump along the way or two.
Yeah,
you almost have to have those. One, okay,
one bump.
One bump. You really have to have that, though, don't you? To really kind of forge and test it?
Yeah, we disagree over things like I play golf and he doesn't. He doesn't understand that. I watch football.
I can't see Mike Card playing golf.
No, I can't.
No, it's a rich white man sport.
So that's right. So we have disagreements about things like that. But I'm talking about heart to heart. I think we made a commitment very early on that we were not going to allow anything to come between us in our heart. That is providential. The Lord put that in for us.
Yeah, it was a gift. I think being in the kind of ministries we're both in, I think God knew we needed this in particular. But I think, as you said when we started the conversation, I think this is something that everybody. I guarantee you, most of the people who are genuinely listening to this conversation are right now thinking, either thank God I have a friend like that,
or I wish I did.
Is there any way, that I can have a friend like that?
Yeah.
You mentioned Jesus and Peter. What about David and Jonathan?
Right. Sure. Once you open the floodgates, I think David and Jonathan is the best example of the fact that Jonathan is giving to David something that David doesn't deserve. Jonathan should have been king, right? And so when David describes their friendship, he uses, my favorite word, hesed, that the person from whom I have a right to expect nothing gives me everything.
Right.
See,
there's no jealousy.
No. Jonathan is truly selfless when it comes to his relationship with David, and he risks his life for David. And I think you only need to have one friend like that. And in fact, I wonder if you can have more than one friend.
I was going to ask
that
question.
I don't know.
Scott, what do you think?
I haven't really thought a lot about it, but my suspicion is that you can only give yourself so much to one person. It's kind of a death until death do we part.
Yeah.
But you look at Jesus' relationships, again, we're always going back to the life of Jesus, and you see, at least when I look at his life, Jesus has Peter, who is clearly his closest friend, but then Jesus has the three, right? Peter, James, and John. Then he has the 12.
Well,
then he has the 70.
How does he describe John?
Right. Well, John describes himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one that Jesus loved.
Yeah. The one that Jesus loved. Yeah. But
and then you have other New Testament, Paul.
Paul and Barnabas. Clearly, there's a friendship.
And then there's the disagreement that they have over John Mark.
Exactly where I was going.
Yeah,
too.
but we have these good examples in the Bible of our real life
disagreement overcome too.
Correct.
Apparently,
eventually, and Barnabas is, I think, one of our prime examples too, because I quote John Stott. John Stott said that Barnabas believed in the work that God was doing in a man. So when no one else believed in Paul, Barnabas believed in Paul. When no one else believed in Mark, Barnabas believed in Mark. And that's a fundamental thing that we're trying to weave into this idea of friendship, that, you believe. I mean, Scott doesn't have to prove himself to me because I believe that God's working in him. I mean, even when, I mess up and say the wrong things or do the wrong thing, or I'm some kind of a jerk, Scott goes, and Scott would hear something like that about me, maybe from someone else. Yeah. We had this discussion this morning.
We did.
What did you say? It's like,
well, it's like 2 + 2 is 5. Michael Card is going around telling people 2 + 2 is 5. You know what? I'm going to say to them, well, that's not Michael Card then. You're not listening to the right guy. Yeah. Or, if Mike said that, he's got a reason why he's saying that. In other words, it's almost, I'm going to believe in Mike no matter what. It's just not about it's not about what you can taste and touch and hear and say. It's really about who he is.
Yeah. Well, and it's not so much because I've earned it either.
No.
Right.
No.
It's hesed. So when the person from whom I have a right to expect nothing gives me everything.
You're both teachers, musicians. Where is this going? I mean, obviously your friendship is the most important thing, but I sense in you want to teach others about what you have.
Well, again, that takes on a huge responsibility, and I would take a deep breath to say that we're going to teach anybody about anything. I mean, I love the fact that Mike, in his concert, allows people to know right from the start, we're going to spend 2 hours singing and talking about Jesus. That's what this is about. It's about Jesus. If Jesus leads us to an opportunity, we want to talk about friendship, but it's not sort of a plan. We don't really have much of an intention. Yeah. I know we'd love to think about it more, certainly pray about it.
Yeah, we kind of caught you in the middle of this, didn't
we? Well, we've written songs. I mean, it's mostly Scott has written songs about friendship. Brother to Brother, is one that he wrote. Within My Reach is really a song about friendship. So it's something he's written about more than I have. But one of the things we're really excited about is that here in a couple of months, we're going to go to Israel, and we're going to talk about spiritual friendships, based on in the life of Jesus. We're going to go to all the places. We're going to walk along the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And
that's for Day of Discovery
for Day
television.
Of Discovery,
So we're going to see that on television eventually.
Yeah. And the really fun thing, although I don't know if we'll get this on tape, is just going to get to see Scott cry when he sees the Sea of Galilee for the first time.
Have you never been there, Scott?
No,
he's
I've never been there.
Oh,
so that's going to be so fun. Okay, Scott, get ready. Here's Peter's house. That's going to be awesome.
I cannot wait to see that television product of Mike and Scott in Israel. Lessons on friendship from two men experiencing it together. Well, in the weeks ahead, we'll come back to Scott and learn more about the burden God has given him to minister to the poor and oppressed. Be listening for that conversation on an upcoming program. This is First Person, and we're found online at firstpersoninterview.com. If you joined us late in today's broadcast, you can jump online and listen to the entire interview on our website. We have all previous programs archived there at firstpersoninterview.com. And while you're there, you can also view the calendar of upcoming guests, firstpersoninterview.com. And we're found on Facebook at facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Next week, you'll meet Charles Morris, the host of the radio program Haven Today. Charles not only talks about his ministry, but also of a tragic event that deeply affected his family. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd, inviting you to join us next week for First Person.